Welcome to Public Health Matters, where we talk about matters in public health. I'm Jane Goodman, Public Health Network Services Coordinator for the Division of Public Health and Community Services. We'll start our show with a COVID report. We have substantial transmission in the United States, the Delta variant making up 99% of the cases currently in our state and across the country. ICU beds, intensive care unit beds, are in short supply in Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida, and a few other southern states are starting to feel a strain. Greater than 90% of the hospitalizations due to COVID-19 are in those that are not vaccinated. So I'll say it now, and I'll say it again later, but please, if you have not had a COVID vaccine, if you know a friend or neighbor without a COVID vaccine, please encourage them to visit vaccines.gov. Vaccines are readily available. In the United States, our 7-day transmission rate is 256 per 100,000 with a 7.56% positivity rate. We're seeing a plateau of cases, but still substantial transmission. So while we are enjoying that we're not still, rocketing up, we still want to be careful about how we go about our daily lives. The unvaccinated people, if you look at this graphic, are 17 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID-19. That one little person who's a different color in there is our vaccinated person. But again, we're just encouraging everyone in our area and our friends and relatives to get vaccinated. It's our best way out of this pandemic. Turning now to Nashua, you see that the city of Nashua has 187 active cases, while Greater Nashua has 507 active cases. New infections per 100,000 are 302.2. Generally, we go into a substantial rate of transmission if we're anything over 100. So you can see by 302, we're well over the 100 mark, and we're hoping that this rate goes down soon. Unfortunately, the last time we broadcast 2 weeks ago, this number was in the 200s, so we're still going up in the last 2 weeks. Our 7-day total test positivity rate is 5.5%. In the city of Nashua, we have 51.6% of people fully vaccinated, and the same in Greater Nashua. In New Hampshire, we're a little bit higher, 54.4%. So again, we encourage those, our neighbors and friends, to go out and get vaccinated. Questions about wearing a mask again? You'll see our graphic this week. Thank you for wearing a mask. Wear it inside, wear it in places where there are a lot of people, especially if you're going out shopping, to the grocery store, if you're going to the mall, anywhere inside where you don't know who's around you. The CDC still recommends that we wear a mask indoors in public, especially in areas of substantial or high transmission. And we have seen those maps, they're completely red all the way across the country. It's even more important if you have a weakened immune system, or if because of your age or an underlying medical condition. So please wear a mask. It protects you and it protects others. Taking a peek at our vaccine dashboard, you'll see that, again, we have 59.7% of those eligible with at least one dose. We could do much better. If you look at the graph on the far left, you'll see this is broken out by age group. And you'll see that the older you get, the more likely you are to be vaccinated. This vaccine has been declared safe and between 12 years old and up. So if you have a child who's going to school, especially where they're in close contact with others, now is the time to get your child vaccinated. I do want to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 third dose. A third dose is for individuals with moderately to severely compromised immune systems because they may have a reduced ability to mount a response to the vaccine. This has been approved for both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, and you must have completed the second dose at least 28 days ago. If you think you qualify for a third dose, talk to your healthcare provider. Most likely your healthcare provider is already in contact with you if they think you should have the third dose. But if you have any questions, talk to your doctor. The COVID vaccine booster has been approved. This is hot off the presses. A lot of controversy around this, going back and forth between the FDA and the CDC, but the CDC now recommends the following individuals should receive a booster shot of Pfizer's COVID vaccine at least 6 months after the completion of your primary series. So we're looking at people 65 years of age and older, people aged 50 to 64 with underlying medical conditions, people aged 18 to 49 with underlying medical conditions based on their individual benefits and risks of having a booster, and people 18 to 64 who are at increased risk for COVID-19 exposure. And that would be your healthcare workers, your teachers, people working in congregate settings, such as prisons or nursing homes. So I just want to show you these, again, graphics. They make it much clearer than a bunch of words. Millions of Americans who receive the Pfizer vaccine are now recommended to get a booster dose. And I do want to emphasize that this is just for those who have received Pfizer. There's ongoing research into the Moderna vaccine and the Johnson & Johnson. Until that data is reviewed and certified, this booster shot is just for those who have received the Pfizer vaccine. Again, you see here, age 65 plus, high risk and high exposure. So again, not everyone is eligible. Here's why. Since the Pfizer vaccine was authorized first, its data on boosters was the first available. Experts are still reviewing Johnson & Johnson and Moderna boosters. And finally, can you get your COVID booster and flu shot at the same time? And the answer is, woohoo, yes, it's time for your COVID-19 booster dose. Get your flu shot on the same day. If you're not eligible for that booster because you received Moderna, be sure to protect yourself from the flu. Schedule your flu shot today. And that's turn to our last slide to crush that flu bug. A yearly flu vaccine is the most important step in preventing against flu viruses. Visit your healthcare provider, your pharmacy, or the Nashua Division of Public Health. Our clinic is open on Tuesdays from 4 to 7 and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Please call 589-4500. Press option 2 to make an appointment. We also do STI testing Thursdays from 3 to 6 p.m. And if you come to an immunization clinic, we also do lead testing at the same time. So current vaccine information is, again, as always, on vaccines.nh.gov, and we'll be right back with our first guests.
I got vaccinated
to help protect my family and friends.
I'm getting vaccinated because it's a first step for our community to go back to normal life.
I'm getting vaccinated because I want to protect my friends, my family, and everyone else in the community.
I've been vaccinated because I want to visit our daughter Caroline and her 2 kids, and because I want to keep our entire Nashua community safe.
We got vaccinated so we can be together.
I got vaccinated because we needed change. We needed to go back to how things were before, and this is how we do it.
Olá, eu tomei minha vacina para minha própria saúde, para o meu próprio bem-estar, também para minha família, proteger minha família, principalmente os meus netos, e também para continuar com a minha comunidade, voltar à minha vida normal.
We are getting vaccinated because it's necessary for the safety of us and the members of our church.
Al vacunarnos, rompemos esa cadena de dolor y muerte producida por el COVID-19.
Mes chers amis, je vous invite à venir vous vacciner. Moi, je me suis déjà vacciné. Pourquoi je me suis fait vacciner?
Niko hapa kuwasihi mpate chanjo ya COVID-19 ili turudi tulivyokuwa kabla ya virusi. Pata chanjo.
I got vaccinated for you.
And I got vaccinated for you. So roll up your sleeve, Nashua, and let's get vaccinated.
Welcome to Public Health Matters, where we talk about matters in public health. I'm Jane Goodman from the Division of Public Health and Community Services, and I'm joined here today in honor of National Recovery Month by Jessica Parnell, Director of Revive in Nashua. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
So you are the Director of Revive in Nashua. Give us just a brief summation of what Revive does. We'll come back to that, of course, but
Sure. So, Revive Recovery Resource Center is a nonprofit peer recovery support center. We have a location on Main Street in Nashua at 263 Main Street. We also have a satellite location in Derry, New Hampshire, and we also do some work for the Manchester Drug Court Program, where we have a satellite location in Manchester as well. So our mission is to open doors and open minds for the recoveries in our community by providing a wide range of services for mental, spiritual, and physical well-being.
so it's National Recovery Month, as we mentioned in the beginning, and you have a story, and you've been gracious enough to be willing to share your story with us, which brings you to your work also at Revive and your passion for this. So could you share your story with us?
Sure. So my name's Jessica, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery from substance use disorder. And for me, that means I haven't introduced a mind or mood-altering substance into my body since 2014.
Wow, congratulations. That's a long time.
Thank you. And I typically don't like to, mention dates or times or, how long I've been clean because of the work I do. However, typically I'm always involved in some events for National Recovery Month, and that's sometimes when I bring it up. Because for me, it's also the month of my anniversary of recovery. So it's a big month for me and for our community as a whole. There's always, lots of events going on that I like to get involved with. And so I guess I can go back, thinking back to, what life was like before knowing that I was a person with substance use disorder. And I just remember kind of feeling like I didn't fit in all the time. I was raised in a very loving family where my mom was a very wealthy or very successful businesswoman, and my dad was the caregiver. And, life I couldn't say was anything out of the ordinary at first. However, I was raised in a family where substances were commonly used, and learning how to deal with emotions wasn't always it wasn't something that was easy for me for the very beginning. I remember feeling overwhelmed a lot, feeling like I didn't know how to express myself in a way that in some of the things that I was feeling. So I can imagine, growing up and as life got more challenging, not understanding how to deal with things was a piece of the puzzle. And, I played lots of sports. I really loved playing sports because it was that place where I felt safe, where I could be myself and not worry as much about being judged. I was pretty good at lacrosse, skiing, field hockey, swimming, and I guess for me that was my place, my way, my constructive way of dealing with things, and connecting with other people, connecting with other women. It was my safe zone. So, I got really involved with sports and ended up playing lacrosse in college, which my dad was pretty involved with sports, and so for him to, see me do well with it was really exciting for him, and he was always at every game, right by my side the whole time. My mom as well, and she would always get as involved as she could, but she was a busy woman, so I ended up going to Fairfield University to play lacrosse and go to school for nursing because I knew since a young age that I also wanted to be a nurse or do something in healthcare. My dad was a type 1 diabetic, and that also kind of made life at home a little interesting at times. So something I wanted to be a part of my story. And so my dad went back to school back to work while I was at school. And he ended up dying in a car accident my first year of college, like my first semester.
That's a really tough loss.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the incident that took me from being just a regular kid that would party on the weekends and still, did what they needed to do during the week. That's when I began reaching for substances to, deal with anything that I was feeling. It started with drinking, led to cocaine, led to harder substances, went from, snorting to, other injecting at times. There's times where people found me dead. And Narcan had to be used.
Wow.
Rescue breaths were at one point something that kept me alive. And so, it took some time before I realized that I was a person with substance use disorder. I do have family members who acknowledge that about themselves, and they would reach out occasionally and be like, "Hey, Jess, like this is going on. We can see what's going on. We're here for you." It took some time before I was, willing to connect with them on that level and realize that the things that they were pointing out in me were true. I decided not to return to college after my second year. I started working at a hospital in Boston, making good money, and lived with some girlfriends down in the area where partying was a common thing. But for the most part, we were still able to get up and go to work type thing.
So you're in Boston, you working, and decided not to go back to school. So what next?
So we were living in Boston, having lots of fun, and I decided not to go back to college because I decided I could make a living working at the hospital and everything was going to be fine. When deep down inside, I was still struggling with dealing with the loss of my father. My family was putting up boundaries with me, and I didn't understand why. I thought this was just normal behaviors. We're all going through, the loss of someone so important to us. Why doesn't anyone want us to be together as a family? And so I ended up moving down to Maryland with my uncle, who at the time had 30-something years in recovery, and he's still in recovery now. But he knew right away that I was struggling, and I started working at a restaurant down there. And long story short, I ended up getting myself into trouble down there. And I had family, but they also had to put up boundaries to protect themselves. My uncle had 2 young boys at the time. And so I ended up diving deeper and deeper into my addiction. Other people put up boundaries, I put up boundaries, and it prevented us from communicating in a healthy way on a regular basis.
So when you say putting up boundaries, they said, "Jessica, we don't want to see you anymore, we don't want to talk to you, you need to get help." I mean, what were they saying to you?
They were saying that I couldn't live there anymore and that I should consider going to treatment. So at first I was like, okay, I'll do it. I got nowhere else to go. What else am I going to do with myself? So I went, I did a quick 21-day treatment and then had nowhere to go after that. So the treatment center I had gone to connected me with sober living. So I had never lived in sober living before, had never even heard of this concept. So I was like, why not? We'll give it a try. What else am I going to do?
Just tell us what that is. Because there's so much to this.
Yeah. So sober living is kind of like a transitional living, or it's basically a house where there's there's lots of women living in one area, and there's rules in place where, you know, you have to go to X amount of meetings, you can't use substances, they drug test to make sure that the environment's safe for all. And then, you know, you get a job, you learn how to live life again. And I did that for a while, but without having the supports of family, and maybe at that time I wasn't ready to stop using substances at the time. I experienced what's called a recurrence, so that's when you go from not using substances to using them again after, you know, a period of time where you're engaging in your own recovery. And it felt like every time I went back to it, it got worse and worse every time. I would turn to stronger substances, use more of them, use them in ways that were more risky each time. And
about how old are you at this point?
At this point, I was like 21.
Okay.
I was still young, and I just felt lost. And that was, for me, the reaching for the substances was why, it was what took away the pain in the moment. I knew that it didn't fix anything, any of the problems that I had, but I knew it took away the pain I was feeling each time. And that's when my legal problems began. And without going into any gory details, I did catch a significant amount of charges in a couple different counties in a relatively short period of time. And I ended up having to spend time in 3 different jails. And I remember at one point my mom, my sister, and my stepdad came to visit me. And I just remember the tears, like my sister, the tears like rolling down her face, like crying hysterically, looking at me in, you know, prison wear, what people wear in jail. And I've never felt so powerless, so helpless, and so just useless in my life. And I wish I could say that that was the end for me. That was about 2012 at that point, 2012. And upon release, I didn't learn much while I was in there, if I'm being honest. I didn't learn any new skills. I didn't make any connections that would help support me later in life. So I went back to what I was going through before.
Right, what you knew. And no one can blame you because you weren't set up for success.
For success, that's correct. But at one point, after following that, I did reach a point of it just got so bad that I knew I needed to change. And I remember the moment when I recognized that I was ready and that I wanted to make a change. And I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I'm ready to do it. I need to go now. I need you to call me a cab. I need to get out of here. And if you don't do it right now, it might not happen." And she did it.
Good for Mom. Yeah. She stuck by you.
She did. And so I went to treatment this time, but it was for a long time. I ended up spending about 9 months to complete a long-term program in locations. I actually went to a couple different locations in Florida and then Oklahoma, and then finally returned back to New Hampshire after completing these programs, which I never thought I was going to be done with. And so I remember actually coming back to New Hampshire. I moved back to Manchester, and my mom actually sent me in the mail while I was living. She lived in Nashua, I lived in Manchester, a flyer for another recovery community organization at the time that was Hope.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a flyer and it talked about recovery coaching, and like I looked at it and I was like, what is this? What's a recovery coach? This sounds really interesting. And I didn't reach out or like get connected right away. In hindsight now, I wish I had. But I just remember coming right back to the area and learning about this new form of recovery, or this new recovery movement that was happening.
Which was not available to you.
Right, which I had never heard of before. I had never heard of a recovery coach, or have never even heard of what a recovery community organization was. And so I started reconnecting in the area and building a recovery support network for myself to set myself up for success in recovery. And then life started getting better. It really did. I would like to say that it was smooth sailing from there, which it wasn't. I can say that maintaining recovery became easier and easier. And the longer time, the longer that time went by, the more connections that I was able to make in different areas and different aspects of recovery that I hadn't heard of before. And so I guess from there, I started going back to school, started living on my own.
And you became a recovery coach.
I did.
And kind of led you to this path, so.
Exactly, I was trying to figure out again.
Yeah.
And so in 2017, I was in school. I was with someone that was struggling with things in life, but we had just started a young family together. And so I was in school, and it was kind of hard. It had become hard to make ends meet, and I realized that I needed to get back to work in addition to going to school. And at the time, Nashua was launching a mobile crisis team, and someone that I knew who is really involved in this area had said, "Hey, they're starting this new program that seems right up your alley. You should apply and see if it's something you might like." So I did, and I got the job. And our second week of training, we got to engage in a training called Recovery Coach Academy. And so this academy, it's a 1 week long training where you kind of learn about the 4 domains of providing peer recovery support services. And I fell in love right away. We talk about the definition of recovery being you are in recovery when you say you are. And I knew that was what I wanted to do. Now, the program that I had started working for was brand new, and sometimes I felt like recovery wasn't talked about as much as I would like it to be. And so I noticed, and actually the former director of Revive was in that training with me. And so we hit it off right away. And when I saw she posted that there was an opportunity for the state's first publicly funded recovery coaching position at Revive, so it was a position where Mayor Donchis and the city got together and said, Nashua needs more recovery coaches. So I started as a community recovery coach, where my role was to go down into the kind of work with the Safe Station program and go into the respite and meet with people there, help them get connected with recovery resources, and basically help them figure out any kind of need that they had while in respite to be successful in long-term recovery. So it was really cool because I get to go, into the respite, meet with people. Then I'd see them out at Keystone Hall when I was there on outreach. And then they'd come in to see me at the center when they got out. And then I'd go help them find a job. And then, I'd help them go get into sober living. So it was really the whole picture to me, and it just made sense.
And you understood being in recovery, long-term recovery now at this point. You understood that there are so many different pieces to this, and the peer support seems critical. I think when, you said 2014, when we were, I guess kudos to the city for thinking that we needed peer recovery coaches.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, the substance misuse and this epidemic really hit the city, hit New Hampshire very, very hard around that time. And I don't want to say blindsided, but I think a lot of people were blindsided by this addiction problem. And so kudos, I just want to say again, to like the city.
Yes.
For thinking, really being ahead of the curve a little bit. So now you're at Revive, you're the director. You're probably not doing that peer coaching as much because you have other responsibilities. Tell me other things that Revive offers to our community right now.
So where to begin? So
yeah, there's a lot.
Yes.
I was poking around your website.
Well, along the lines of mobile crisis, in 2019, we started a partnership with Greater Nashua Mental Health Center for an adverse childhood experiences mobile response team. So that's the ACEs team, and it's a partnership between Revive and Greater Nashua Mental Health Center. It's a and actually the Nashua Police Department and Hudson Police Department. So a recovery coach from Revive and then a clinician from the Children's Department of Greater Nashua Mental Health will respond to the scene of a substance misuse event within 1 hour to the clinicians kind of help support the children. We're there to support the recovery of either the children, the parents, whoever else is present, and we help them get connected with that recovery community that we've been talking about. Help them put together what's called a recovery wellness plan, and also figure out if there's any resources out there to help support the whole family. I didn't talk too much about it, but my oldest child, who is now 7, experienced some adverse childhood experiences in his younger years. And so for me, thinking back to that time, our family could have benefited from a program like this. And I think about, you know, my son and almost watching him be a part of my recovery, mine and his father's recovery process, and how he needs additional support sometimes, just to, you know, feel like he's a typical 7-year-old boy. So that's one thing that we do. We
and
also,
that's, you know, from a public health perspective, we talk about ACEs all the time, and we really try to use an adverse childhood experience lens for almost everything we do, you know, beyond substance misuse and all these different public health issues, because the kids are deeply affected, how they grow up, what they see, what they internalize. And so having that that team that can go out and respond to those kids is so critical.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, they didn't choose where they were going to grow up. So, you know, that's an amazing service.
Thank you. And along those lines, we also have a family support group geared towards parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents, children who have a loved one experiencing substance use. So it's you know, this, it's a platform in which families can come together and share and build their own support network, because just as much as the person with substance use disorder needs support, the family does as well.
Absolutely. It's like an Al-Anon or
yes.
one of those kind of.
Yes. We also have a program called Parenting Journey and Recovery, and that's a 14-week program that before COVID we would provide transportation, child care, and a family-style meal. So it meets for 2 hours for 14 weeks. It's a curriculum that's developed to get parents to learn parenting skills and learn to build connections with other parents in recovery, because being both of those topics myself, having those two hats to juggle sometimes can be quite a lot to deal with. So giving them the resources that they need is also a very important piece of the puzzle. Another program that we just launched recently is called Youth in Recovery. So it's a youth alternative peer group. So that's a group geared towards ages 12 through 25, youth who struggle with substance use. We just launched that. We got some people showing up and it's gaining some momentum. So that's really new and exciting for us lately. Another thing that we've actually been working with the city on for since I started at Revive in 2018 is called the Syringe Service Alliance of the Nashua area. So that's SANA for short. It's a comprehensive harm reduction program that distributes sterile supplies for people to use safely. We also provide Narcan with that program and help our community members. We take their syringes back as well. So,
yeah, I had an opportunity to, go out because also we have our community health workers at the division are out there with the mobile van doing the exchange, and I believe somebody from Revive was there.
Yes.
Just following up, with the people as they came and made their exchanges and offering them, a resource in a very calm, not pushy way at all. Just we're here when you're ready.
Yep, absolutely. Educating them on, all the dangers, all the risks, all the ways to use in a way that's safely is really important. And for us, we feel as if around 90% of people enter in recovery in a state of practicing harm reduction. So if we're not meeting that need, then we're leaving 90% of people out.
Wow.
That's the way we look at it.
And that's really interesting because harm reduction can be very controversial, but to understand why we're motivated to do that is that it is really the first step. But from what you're saying, it is a first step toward recovery to know that even the idea that to do something safer, even if it's still not safe, it's safer, and it puts you in a better place. So anything else? I did notice that you could craft even with Crystal.
Yes, crafting with Crystal. So that happens on Mondays at 1 p.m. So Crystal is someone who does our parenting journey program. She does some work for drug court as well. And so she loves crafting. And she's found that people like coming in and just hanging out, talking about recovery. And she plans like a different activity each Monday where, sometimes they do tie-dye t-shirts. Sometimes they do like build your own, it's like a Rubik's Cube.
Cool.
Infinity Cube it's called, I'm sorry. And so she does all these fun activities. We try to find, we try and find outside of the box things for people to do because we have lots of meetings and you can check out our website to see what some of those meetings are, www.reviverecovery.org. But we have those meetings, but we want other things that people can do to like really come in and connect and feel like they're at home. And that's one thing I think we've done a really good job at doing, creating that safe place for all.
And it is a home, like
it does.
Main
it's
Street.
A beautiful
it is
little
a house.
home.
I noticed.
Thank you. Yeah, we love our building and we love being right on Main Street, being across from Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. All those things, you mentioned kudos to the city. It's like I get to brag anywhere I go about all the resources we have here in this area and how, when someone's struggling anytime I need help with something, all I have to do is just like send an email to somebody and someone responds with something tremendous, with like a solution better than I could ever imagine. And that's one thing I'm really grateful for here in the city of Nashua is that we have that at our fingertips.
We have a lot of community partnerships and a lot of people working together to improve the state of the city and, different areas. And, substance misuse, of course, is one of those most important topics of our time.
Yes.
So I have one last question, because you mentioned it before, you talked about it a little bit, but Revive is very involved with the drug courts.
Yes.
And to me, this is so important, because I don't necessarily believe that like punishing people and sending them to prison is going to solve anything if you have an addiction or if you have, So tell me about your involvement with the drug courts as Revive and why it is so important. Just let people understand that.
So we are involved with 3 different drug court programs here in Nashua. It's the Hillsborough County South Adult Recovery Court Program. And then we do some work for the Rockingham County Drug Court Program as well. And then Hillsborough North, which is Manchester, their drug court program. And so for us, it's become such a huge piece of the equation in what we do on the day-to-day because, any kind of court diversion program, such as a drug court or a recovery court, is there to give individuals involved in criminal justice an opportunity to engage in treatment that will help them learn skills and give them resources that they would never have had access to before. They could have accessed it, but unfortunately, sometimes you need some additional accountability to reach out and get engaged in those services. And so it's almost like a new way, it's teaching people a new way of life when sometimes it can be a little bit more forced than, in the beginning it is, but then you notice that people start engaging in treatment and engaging with a recovery coach and learning about recovery and going to meetings and building relationships and learning that they're worth it for themselves because a lot of times, they don't have those supports in place and probably wouldn't unless it was forced upon them. So, I have been involved in the Nashua Drug Court for several years now. And at first it was scary for me, watching people get sent to jail and not really knowing, really understanding the whole picture of things. But then, a year goes by and they're in sober living and they're engaging with a sponsorship family and they're, gaining custody of their children back and they're getting a job and they're able to pay for their bills on their own. They're working on repairing their credit and and then they just keep going and then eventually they graduate as whole people. People
Very
in
rewarding
recovery.
to see that.
Oh, it's the most rewarding experience I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Well, Jessica, thank you for all that you do and for being willing to share your story with us so people understand, how real this is and also so people understand that there are so many resources out there. With Revive connecting you to a lot of different resources in the community, the doorway, the hospitals. It's a great place for recovery. So take advantage of those services and reach out right on Main Street, as you said. So I wish you best of luck in your continued journey. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jane. And happy National Recovery Month, everybody.
Absolutely. Happy National Recovery Month. And we'll be right back.
I can do this.
We believe in you.
Each day brings hope.
Every day, millions of people celebrate their recovery from addiction and mental illness while others begin their journey. Be a part of it. Tell your story. Join the Voices for Recovery. Together, we are stronger. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral for mental or substance use disorders for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Welcome back to Public Health Matters, where we talk about matters in public health. I'm Jane Goodman from the Division of Public Health and Community Services. And I'm now joined by Kathy Farland. Welcome, Kathy.
Thanks for having me.
Kathy is the director of Stepping Stones, which is a relatively new nonprofit
Yeah, we've been open almost 10 months now.
Oh, almost 10 months. So we're getting you in before the year is up, so that's fabulous. Stepping stones, and I'm just going to read your mission, so just to give our folks at home a little orientation, is your goal. Your mission is to help homeless, unaccompanied youth ages 12 to 25 become happy, self-sufficient adults. And we were talking a little bit before the show. I was thinking, you looked familiar to me, so I thought I must know you from another nonprofit. And turns out, no, I don't, because you were an accountant prior to this. But you have a very interesting story about how you started doing this work. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that would be
Sure.
great.
So yeah, before this, I was an accountant for about 25 years. So this is a big switch for me. But yeah, the reason I ended up getting into it is because my husband and I were foster parents for about a decade. We had almost 40 kids that we had fostered over that time period. But we took all preschool age kids, which means we had very young parents of the kids. And part of being foster parents is to help the birth parents remake those connections. And what we found is that the adult kids that we were working with, is that they just didn't really know how to get out of the situations they were in. They didn't know what resources were available, and more often than not, they ended up losing custody of their children. So as our foster kids got older, one of those things where last time you saw a kid and they were 3, and you think they're always like 5 or 6, and all of a sudden they're like 22. So we keep track of that, and we were realizing that kids that were aging out of DCYF sometimes had nowhere to go when they aged out, and that got me thinking about getting involved with this, and so I joined the COC Continuum of Care Ending Youth Homelessness Committee in last June, and then we opened in December.
Wow, you work fast.
So I was on a mission.
Yeah. So this is really a passion project for you, as
Very
well as
much.
a job, of course.
Very much so.
And what I think is really interesting and surprising and heartbreaking is what you kind of just described. When and I don't know that people realize this or not, but if a child's in foster care or in a group home and they turn 18, they're no longer eligible to be those foster children or in those group homes.
Right.
And they often have not been equipped with the right skills to live on their own. I mean, just imagine 18, how are you going to cope? So the need is very great.
And that's it. And it's not even necessarily kids that are, aging out of DCYF, but any 18-year-old. I mean, kids at 18 generally across the board are not equipped to be able to do adulting.
Right.
They don't know how to get apartments. They don't know how, haven't had full-time jobs. They don't know how to budget, how to handle so many of these things that we don't learn until we're a little bit older, and that our parents help us with. So for the kids that have aged out and don't have those families to help them with it, or 70% of our homeless youth are homeless because their situation at home was abusive. So it's not just kids at DCYF, it's kids that never made it to DCYF, and that their home situations were so bad that they feel safer being on the street than they do living where they were living. So they're already starting way behind the 8 ball on trying to do these adulting things without really any support.
So it can be very difficult day to day. With some of the clients, I'll use client, or some of the kids that you're seeing, they're kids to me.
I call them my kiddos all the time.
Yeah.
That half of them call me mom. So.
Oh, that's very sweet. So tell me, what is the problem in Nashua? I mean, I don't often see the youngest people, living on the streets, or when I'm downtown, when I'm around our office. So what is the extent of the problem in Nashua? What's the estimate?
So most people don't see them. The younger kids, especially the ones under 18, don't want to be found. They don't want to be seen, mostly because they don't want to be sent to whatever situation it was that they ran away from, or they might have been thrown out of their homes, depending on the situation that they were in. So they don't want to be found, and that's why you don't see a lot of them. A lot of my kids last winter I had kids sleeping under the bridge. I had kids camping out in Mines Falls areas, sleeping in their cars, you know, all through the winter. And it's a tough place for them to be able to move from, because when you're so focused on if you're going to be able to find a safe place to sleep tonight, it's hard to think about finishing school or or getting a career, or even, you know, getting a driver's license. How do you get a driver's license if you can't practice driving? How do you get a birth certificate? This is one of that makes me crazy. You can't get a birth certificate without a picture ID. You can't get a picture ID without a birth certificate. You can't get a job without a picture ID. So, you know, you see sometimes people like, well, they should just go get a job. It's like, you can't legally work without those documents, and you can't get one document without the other. So unless they have a place that can help them with something like that, they're literally stuck. And it's such a simple thing that really is literally a 5-minute fix. But if they don't have anywhere to go to help them do that, they can't get a job. They can't apply for housing. They can't get food stamps because they need the IDs and they need these documents. So they can't really get any help with something as simple as just being able to do those couple of things.
So they're coming, so I read somewhere around 400 homeless?
Yes, sorry, that was the original question.
Yeah, no, but
so, yeah. So that's based off of an estimate. Chapin Hill did a study that's used widely across the country, that 1 in 10 kids between the ages of 18 and 25 will be homeless at least once this year. 1 in 10. And 1 in 30 kids between the ages of 13 and 17 will be homeless sometime this year. So if you think about a classroom in a school, about 30 kids, one of those kids in every single one of those classes is going to be homeless sometime during this year. So it is a tremendously large population, much more so than you think, because we don't see them. Now, some of those kids are couch surfing, so they're not sleeping outside. And of course, for the kids under 18, they have to be somewhere else. They're not allowed into shelters unaccompanied if they're under the age of 18. So they can't even go to the emergency shelters. So they try to stay with friends. They'll sleep in hallways in the parking garages. They'll sleep under the bridges, and anywhere that they find that they think will be fairly safe for them
Right,
that
safety
evening.
is a huge issue when you're out on the streets.
There's stuff gets stolen all the time. You know, sometimes the kids will actually walk all night to stay awake, and then they'll come, now that we have the drop-in center, they'll come to the drop-in center and they'll sleep for like 6 hours because they've been up all night.
Now, is there a place? So tell me what's at the drop-in center.
So the drop-in center, we have a bunch of different things. We have lockers for the kids so that they can keep their belongings there and they don't have to worry about them being stolen. And they don't have to take them at the end of the day. They can leave them there for as long as they want. They come in and grab them. We've got shower and laundry that the kids come in and do. Nothing, there's no charge for anything. We've got the kitchen where they can, you know, make meals. We've got a free shelf where they can take stuff with them when they go. We've got a rec room that has computer games and movies and puzzles, and a lot of the kids are playing the Magic Gathering now. It's a card game.
Oh,
so
never heard of it.
So they play that one a lot. We've got a baby room for our kids that have kids, and we've got a quiet room where the kids can take a nap, listen quietly to music, draw, read. It's a little quieter. Sometimes the rec room can get a little loud.
A little busy.
Yeah, if they're all playing video games. We've got a computer room where they can go in and use the computers, and we've got a clothes closet where they can come in and get clothes if they need them. And we have our apartment room. So when our kids get new apartments, we're able to outfit them with all the things for the kitchen, the bedroom, their bathroom, and they can come in and go shopping.
Nice.
So they come in and they're able to pick out all the things.
And how do
they
you
want.
stock that? Do you ask for donations, or you just buy it through your budget?
It is all donations. Our budget as a new nonprofit is practically non-existent, but we've had tremendous support from several of the local church groups. They have been amazing at keeping us stocked with some of the things that we need for the kids. You know, we've had some corporate sponsorship help. We don't get any state or federal funding at all, and we've had one grant from the city. So it's a mishmash of things, but it is really very much a community effort, just between individual donors. You know, I had put something on our Facebook page last night that we needed tents. I've got 3 kids right now that are sleeping outside without even a tent, and I posted it, and by this morning I had 2 different people that had ordered 2 tents each.
Wow.
So I've got 4 tents coming that we'll have for the kids in the next couple days.
And do you keep a wish list on your website?
We do. Yep.
Okay, because I'm going to go back and look. I'm just curious. Maybe we can post that later.
Yeah.
Because that's important. I know the soup kitchen does that too. That they have wish lists. Sometimes they need certain things, and so I think that definitely is a cause that a lot of people would like to support. They just need to know a little bit more about it, and that's why you're here, so we can hear more about it.
Absolutely.
So I was reading a little bit, doing a little research. I'm not an expert, but I noticed that there were some risk factors for being homeless as a youth. And so some of them were just lack of education, not being able to finish your high school degree or even your GED, which leaves you in that predicament of finding a job
Right.
without even that diploma. Low income seemed to be
which is
a marker for it.
Which is tied to education. About 85% of kids that are homeless have either dropped out of school or have been expelled from school.
Okay.
So only about 15% of them are even high school graduates, let alone any type of additional training from there. So yeah, that it does keep them in the very lowest paying jobs, which again makes it almost impossible for them to be able to live on their own.
Right. Now, do you work with them to get their GED, or is that down the road, hopefully, or?
Yeah, actually we have My Turn, which is an agency that's actually in our same building that will work with some of the kids if they meet the qualifications to help them with that, and they'll help them with job training. What we really try to do is we try not to do everything in-house. There's already a lot of great community organizations.
Try to connect.
Yeah, so our job is to fill the gaps, to be that home base for them, and to fill those gaps for things that they don't have resources for, and for us to get them the resources for the that's already out there.
So how are they finding you? Who's referring them to you? Who are you walking the streets and finding people? You know, you're going to Mines Falls. You know, how are you finding people?
It's a little of everything. We do some street outreach where we actually go out and talk to the kids. Of course, you can't tell necessarily looking at them, although, you know, over the summer and last year, it was pretty easy to tell if you saw a kid walking around with a backpack, they weren't headed to school. And that's usually a fairly good indicator right there. So we do some street outreach and just try to talk to the kids and let them know if they know anybody that's homeless, that we're available. And often they'll be like, hey, I'm homeless. You know, what's the deal with this program? So we find some that way. We get referrals from some other agencies. Revive, actually, has referred over some kids from Bridges for domestic violence, the city. So they come from here and there, the school district. And
so the word is getting out.
It is starting to, which is good.
So, and then I also see LGBTQ youth are at high risk.
Yes.
Is that because they're being asked to leave their homes, or?
Usually, yes. Either they're being asked to leave, or they aren't comfortable in their home.
Staying in their home.
Yeah. So it may be what they call a throwaway, which means they've been thrown out of their house, which could be for something like that. It could be for an unplanned pregnancy. It could be just a financial situation where the family might have so many younger kids that they really can't support the older ones, and they need them to move out and be able to do their own things. So it can be a combination of a lot of different things. But, you know, parenting youth are another big one that end up being homeless as well.
If they are parents.
If they are, right, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously don't stop at 18. You go beyond 18 to help, because they're still kids, even at 22, if they're, you know, not in a stable housing situation.
And that's exactly, yep, we actually go up to 25.
Okay.
Our kids, I have kids that are 25 that come now. And yeah, what we found actually is that even, we've had really great success getting the kids apartments. We now have, in the almost 10 months we've been open, we have 11 kids that are now in their own apartments that we've been able to help them get, which is tremendous. It doesn't come anywhere near fixing the problem, but it's a good start.
Right. Well, one thing at a time. Have a safe place to sleep and to have your meals and
exactly.
maybe, shower so you can go to work and that kind of thing. That's a huge step up because you really have to have housing. It's a basic need.
And that's exactly it. And a lot of times the kids can't really focus on anything else until they have that safe place to go. But what we found is that even once the kids get their apartments, they're calling and stopping by regularly. I need help with this, or I don't understand what this is that they sent me, or paperwork, or just sometimes just to celebrate. Hey, just want to let you know I got a new job and I'm really excited about it. And it's like that's great. So it's been really cool to continue to see our kids even once they've got their housing, and be able to continue to be that support for them to continue that journey to adulting that they're going through.
Right. Well, I would imagine as time goes on too, you'll be able to see more of those success stories because you're still really in your infancy. You're not.
We are. We are. It's been quite a roller coaster year.
So, how many staff do you have?
So up until about 3 weeks ago, it was just me.
Oh, and that's why we had trouble getting you on TV.
Yes. Yes. I actually have 2 part-time people now. Administrative person who does so much backstage stuff. Bevan keeps just things running smoothly. And then we now have a part-time program coordinator. So she's working more with the kids while they're there, and we're starting to do more activities with them. We're going to be doing a self-defense class with Tokyo Joe's. We're working with the Y to be able to take the kids up there to shoot baskets and go swimming and do that, a couple times a week. We're doing a pumpkin carving. We're doing some art classes that Dana will be running. So we're really trying to expand, cooking classes. We'll be starting cooking classes too. So we're really trying to expand what the kids have to do during the day while they're there. And hopefully that will continue to bring some more of the kids in.
And so so you're there just 8 to 5? Like, what are the hours if someone's hearing this and wants to refer someone over there?
Right now it's 8 to 4 Monday through Friday,
okay.
Which is not ideal. I would ideally love to be open 7 to 7, 7 days a week, but we're just not there yet.
Right.
So,
it will take more funding.
It will. It will. So if anybody wants to send us checks for several hundred thousands of dollars, I'd be happy to take those.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big piece of it. But we are, we've been really lucky with the staff that I have. They're great with the kids, and our whole thing is we want to make sure the kids are comfortable there. And sometimes they'll come in and they'll spend 15 minutes and they'll be in and out, and sometimes they'll be there from the time we open to the time we close. It just depends on what they have going on.
Right, and what their day's like, and what happened yesterday, and
exactly
what they have to look forward to the next day. So depends if you. It must be hard though if they're leaving at 4 to kind of not know where they're going. For some of them.
Yes, that is probably the toughest part of this, especially when it was last winter when it was cold out and I knew I had kids sleeping under the bridge. If they're camping out, or it's their first night, or their first couple nights being on their own and they just don't know where is a safe place to go, that is by far the hardest part. One of the things we're actually hoping to be able to do in the next year or so, because we haven't done enough yet, I need more things to do, is we're hoping to be able to do a transitional living program.
Okay.
So that the kids would actually have a place to sleep and then still be able to work on a lot of these skills that they've been working on, but just in a little bit more of a structured environment.
Now, are some of these kids able to access the shelters that are in the area, or are they too young, or,
They are, if there's availability at the shelters, they can access them. Most of the kids are not comfortable at the shelters. It's a very different demographic, and they oftentimes will prefer to be outside or staying somewhere else rather than at the shelter. It's just not a comfortable place for them.
Yeah. So this gives them an alternative, at least during the day, because I know, for example, a lot of the shelters during the day are closed.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of the reverse. So you guys are open during the day and keeping your fingers crossed at night that they have a safe place to sleep and spend some time outside.
They couch surf when they can, and probably about half my kids, will have a roof over their head at least, at night for that particular night, but there's no guarantee for how long that'll last.
Right. Well, I can see that this is deeply a passion project for you, as you refer to them as my kids.
All the time.
So about how many are there like now, do you think, like your census, like during the week?
We have different amounts of kids every day because there's different ones that pop in. We usually have between 5 and 10 kids on any particular day that will either stop in or be there all day. But I've got to say, I'm so impressed with the kids and their resiliency, and just when they're able to just get some of these small roadblocks out of their way, they can just fly. They're getting jobs. I've got kids in school. I've got one of my kids was one of the kids that was sleeping under the bridge last winter, and he's finished his LNA certification. He's bought a car. He's finishing up for his driver's license, and he's moving into his new apartment on Monday.
Wow.
So
that feels good.
It's really cool to see how they want to do these things. They don't want to be homeless. This isn't where they want to be. They want to be successful. They just need some of these supports.
Some tools and some supports. Well, thank you for providing that for our future, really, for the kids that are out there and in unfortunate situations. And I hope that the more that need this service can find it. And it must be some word of mouth is also like, among the kids, or?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of our kids will bring in other kids from time to time that they know, and they'll come in and they'll be like, "It's okay, talk to her, it's okay."
Yeah.
Because it can be scary for any kid that's in a situation like that to walk into some place they don't know, and they don't know what's going to happen, and they don't know what they're going to be asked, and they don't know what's going to be expected of them. So that is a big first step for them to even just be able to walk in the door, but they become comfortable really quickly. And they'll go they'll lounge, or they'll take a nap and grab something to eat, and it a lot of the kids are like, yeah, this is very much like a home environment. They're just comfortable here. They come in, they wave to me, hey, it's like, hey. Off they go, and they go do their own thing in the center.
That's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that we have this need in Nashua, but I'm really glad that you're doing something about it, and that you've had the success in a really short period of time. Sometimes the problems feel so big, but you're chipping away at it. So I want to thank you for all your work, and remind our audience that they can go on Stepping Stones and look at that wish list or make a donation, help keep all of our kids safe, and get them to a point where they're independent.
That's our goal, and they'll get there. They'll get there with the support. So we'll just keep working on it.
All right. Well, thank you, Kathy.
Well, thank you for
we
having
look forward to. We'll have you back and see how it's going.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us on Public Health Matters. Don't forget, vaccines are available at vaccines.gov. Easy to get, COVID shot, and it's flu season, so don't forget to get your flu shot.